to address a theory that many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
I'm not happy with what one of my daughters is doing, and I don't know what caused her to do this. We've had this conversation before. She's telling lies.
And not a surprise here because, yeah, she lies a lot about her stuff. We've caught her in so many lies. Her own sister has come forward, her family, everybody is exposing the lies that she's been telling.
No, I choose people who don't want to be written about, on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they want to hide their secrets, and I just love digging away to find out what they don't want us to know.
Breaking news. The royal lie that shook the world. The glittering image of the British royal family, the flawless fairy tale sold to millions, just cracked wide open tonight. Behind the perfectly polished crown, a secret has been silently rotting for decades. A secret tied to one woman, Meghan Markle. For years, the world was told Meghan was 44 years old. But leaked files, sealed agreements, old magazines, and missing school records reveal a different truth, a truth buried beneath royal privilege. The explosive discovery? Meghan's real age may be closer to 50, and the palace knew more than they ever admitted. The first crack came from an old 1997 17 magazine feature, a single page that listed Meghan's age as 21, when she should have been 15. That one number didn't just shake the timeline, it shattered it. Then came her father's voice, quiet, trembling, but certain. He said dates were altered. Photos disappeared. Friends silenced. And behind the palace gates, something far darker had been buried, something that could rewrite her entire royal narrative. And when the hospital records from Portland Hospital surfaced, everything changed. No discharge report. A cover name entry. A medically impossible, perfect birth story. Doctors called it a fairy tale. Insiders called it a cover-up. Now TikTok is on fire. Twitter threads are exploding. Reddit is calling it the royal age lie. Whispers have turned into a roar, and for the first time, silence from Buckingham feels like admission. This isn't just an age scandal. This is a royal earthquake. A truth so heavy, it could crush the fairy tale the world was made to believe. Stay right here, because what comes next might change the royal story forever. The palace always wanted the world to believe in a perfect fairy tale, the glowing smile, the royal elegance, the flawless timeline. But the moment the first hidden page surfaced, that fairy tale began to rot from the inside. What you're about to hear is not a rumor. It's a timeline that doesn't match, a birth date that doesn't align, and a secret that's now shaking the entire royal foundation. For years, the world was told Meghan Markle was 44 years old. But the truth is clawing its way out of the shadows, and it's far darker than anyone ever expected. This didn't start in Buckingham Palace or some fancy gala. It began decades ago on a single magazine page. 17 Magazine, March 1997. A young Meghan, smiling, polished, and already building the image of a woman the world would one day call Duchess. But right next to her name, in small black print, her age was listed as 21. According to the official royal records, she should have been 15 at that time. 6 years gone. Erased. Wiped from existence as if they never happened. That's not a typo. That's a cover-up. When that page resurfaced, investigators didn't just see a number. They saw a doorway, a crack in the carefully built royal wall. And through that crack came voices. Old classmates. School administrators. People who remember a different timeline. A girl older than the story they were sold. A girl who wasn't just edited, she was reconstructed. And then came the father. Thomas Markle, the man who watched her grow, the man who knew every birthday, every graduation, every moment before the world knew her name. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was cold, steady, and filled with something heavier than anger, betrayal. He said files were altered, dates were shifted, and photos quietly disappeared. He spoke of friends who were contacted, silenced, and made to sign agreements. Agreements that locked away the real timeline of Meghan Markle's early life. For years, no one questioned the official royal story. Who would dare? But the problem with lies is that they don't age well. They crack. They leak. And when they do, they bring everything down with them. The second leak came from the most unexpected place, the hospital. The day of Archie's birth was painted like a royal masterpiece. Candles, epidurals, and a smiling Duchess walking out of Portland Hospital just 2 hours after delivery. But when Tom Bauer's team got their hands on the actual hospital records, the masterpiece fell apart like wet paper. No discharge report under her name. A cover name, entry used to mask the patient's identity. No medical clearance for such a quick release. And doctors, when shown the timeline, called it what it was: impossible. A perfect royal birth story that could only exist in a Hollywood script. Not in reality. Not in medicine. Not in truth. And that's when the whispers became thunder. Twitter threads. Reddit investigations. TikTok timelines stitched frame by frame. Someone even leaked an old LAID card, blurred but real, that carried a birth year of 1975. Not 1981. If that's real, Meghan isn't 44. She's pushing 50. And the palace, the same palace that protects every thread of its history, never said a word. Now the internet isn't asking questions. It's demanding answers. Why was her timeline rewritten? Who changed the records? And how deep does this cover-up go? Because if one lie this big was hidden, how many more are waiting beneath the surface? The silence from Buckingham isn't calm, it's loud. Too loud. And in that silence, the world is realizing something terrifying. The royal fairy tale might have been written with lies inked in gold. And when lies this old finally break, they don't just fall, they explode. They said the palace was untouchable, that no one could ever pierce the golden walls surrounding the royal image. But what happens when the very foundation of that image starts to rot from within? When a single page, a single file, a single whisper turns into a storm that the palace can't silence anymore. That's exactly what's happening now. The lie isn't small. It's massive. It's strategic. And it's unraveling at full speed. As investigators dug deeper, the cracks began to widen. What started with an old magazine page became a web of hidden documents, sealed agreements, and quietly altered records. And at the center of it all, Meghan Markle's missing 6 years. For decades, those years were buried under layers of royal gloss, red carpets, and perfectly staged interviews. But once the seal was broken, nothing could stop the flood. A whistleblower from California stepped forward, a woman who claimed to have worked in the school district archives in the late 90s. She said something most people weren't ready to hear. Those records weren't just filed wrong. They were rewritten. And someone paid a lot to keep it that way. Her statement spread like wildfire. Within hours, anonymous emails and encrypted messages started leaking online, fragments of old-school reports, attendance sheets, and forgotten applications. All of them pointed to one terrifying truth: the official timeline was a fabrication. But it wasn't just the paperwork. It was the pattern. A timeline carefully constructed, piece by piece, like a puzzle designed to fit a royal narrative. Yearbooks with pages missing. Graduation programs with reprinted editions. Teachers who suddenly couldn't recall anything. Classmates who spoke of a woman older than the public believed her to be. And every story seemed to trace back to the same 6-year black hole. Then came the second blow. Someone leaked an audio recording allegedly captured years ago, a tense conversation between 2 royal aides. Their voices are low, nervous, and deliberate. One of them says, if the birth year gets out, it's over. The image collapses. The other replies, then it can't get out. We have too much riding on her story. The clip went viral overnight, millions replaying it, slowing it down, analyzing every word. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was evidence. And while the world raged online, the palace said nothing. No denial. No press conference. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't protect the truth, it hides it. Meanwhile, TikTok detectives and Reddit investigators went even deeper. Old photos were compared to official ages. Medical timelines were analyzed. Even tiny background details from interviews were matched with real-world events. And piece by piece, the image of a 44-year-old Duchess began to crumble into dust. Then, The most unexpected moment of all. A former close friend of Meghan's, someone who'd remained quiet for years, finally spoke out anonymously. Her voice shook in the recording. "I can't live with this anymore," she said. "We were told to say she was younger. We all were. The story wasn't hers alone. It was built for her, protected for her. But now, it's too big to hide." That confession sent a shockwave across every platform. People weren't just angry anymore, they were betrayed. They had bought into a royal fantasy, a polished story, and now it looked like everything had been scripted from the very beginning. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. If this was anyone else, one user wrote, they'd be finished. But this is the royal family. They'll bury it again. Another said, this isn't just a lie. This is a cover-up of a cover-up. And, through it all, Buckingham Palace remained silent. No confirmation. No denial. Just a shadow hanging over the crown. But the thing about shadows is they stretch. And right now, that shadow is crawling over every royal corridor, every statement, every face that once represented truth. This is no longer a PR issue. This is a royal credibility crisis. And when an entire empire is built on an illusion, it only takes one crack to bring the palace down. They thought they could hide it forever, that no one would ever question the timeline, the story, the illusion carefully wrapped in silk and gold. But lies, no matter how royal, don't last forever. What started as whispers has now erupted into a roar the palace can't silence. Every corner of the internet is buzzing. Every headline is pointing at one woman's name. And behind that name is a truth that's been buried like a royal skeleton for years. The age scandal has now exploded far beyond gossip. This isn't just about one magazine page or one hospital file anymore. This is about trust. The trust of millions who believed in a fairy tale. The trust of a world that watched royal weddings and thought it was all real. But the illusion is cracking in front of everyone's eyes, and the palace can feel it. What came next shocked even those who thought they'd seen it all. A set of confidential royal communication logs was leaked, messages between senior aides and legal advisors. The tone was urgent, panicked. One line stood out like a thunderbolt. The real date must never surface. If it does, everything unravels. The words didn't sound like people defending the truth. They sounded like people trying to bury it deeper. And once those logs hit the public, the narrative shifted completely. It was no longer a scandal, it was a cover-up. Insiders came forward anonymously. One claimed there was an internal containment protocol activated inside Buckingham the night the age leak went viral. Lawyers were scrambled. PR teams were locked in conference rooms for hours. Aides were told not to speak to anyone, not even their families. The palace gates may have looked calm on the outside, but inside, panic was eating through the walls like fire. Meanwhile, journalists began pulling at threads no one had dared touch before. If the age was a lie, what else was? A major outlet published a timeline reconstruction showing gaps that went beyond just 6 years. Entire events didn't line up. Travel records, early career statements, and even charity appearance dates began to fall out of sync with the official royal biography. And then came the final blow, a voice recording, allegedly from a meeting between two senior figures in the royal circle. The female voice said, "We can't erase the past, but we can erase what they see." The male voice answered coldly, then started erasing. That recording was enough to light the internet on fire. Within minutes, hashtags like #RoyalAgeLie, #EraseThePast, and #PalaceCoverUp were trending worldwide. The silence from the palace, the same silence that once held power, has now turned against them. People aren't hearing silence anymore. They're hearing guilt. They're hearing fear. And outside those palace gates, something dangerous is growing. Not a protest of hundreds. A movement of millions. People demanding truth. People asking why the same rules never apply to the powerful. Every interview Meghan gave, every smile in front of the cameras, every detail of her royal journey is being rewatched, reanalyzed, and ripped apart frame by frame. Supporters who once defended her with blind loyalty have started turning. The betrayal feels personal now, because this isn't just a royal family issue, it's a story about trust broken in broad daylight. Journalists are calling it the biggest royal credibility crisis since Diana. Commentators say this isn't going away. It's not just a scandal. It's a fracture, a deep, bleeding wound in the royal image. And this time, no palace statement will be enough to seal it. As the pressure mounts, sources claim the palace is preparing for its final play, a desperate attempt to distract the world. But it might already be too late. Because once a lie this big escapes, you can't contain it. The age wasn't just a number. It was the foundation. And now that foundation is collapsing, piece by piece, under the weight of its own deception. What began as a secret buried in old paper is now a firestorm swallowing the crown itself. No one, not even a duchess, can outrun the truth forever. This isn't just another royal headline. This is the moment the entire fairy tale shattered. The truth that was supposed to stay buried in dusty archives is now standing in the middle of the world stage, screaming to be heard. They tried to erase it. They tried to rewrite it. They tried to make us believe in a perfect image wrapped in lies. But once a secret this big escapes, there's no locking it back up. Millions believed her story. Millions trusted every smile, every headline, every royal photo op. But now, that trust is bleeding out in real time. The royal silence isn't strength anymore. It's guilt echoing through the palace walls. And as the world watches, that silence is collapsing like glass. Ask yourself, if they lied about this, what else are they hiding? How many more truths were sacrificed to keep a crown shining? This isn't just Meghan's scandal. This is a crack in the royal illusion itself. If this shook you, share it. Let the world know the fairy tale isn't gold, it's a mask. And tonight, that mask finally slipped.